Other news and notes throughout the course of the NFL day today, not the least of which Tyreek Hill back at practice.
Other things happen.
Well,
I can't believe. I don't even believe you. How did anything else happen?
Being honest, nothing else did. Nothing else did. But Tyreek Hill participated in today's practice for the first time in 3 weeks. This is important here as he was limited in practice. He's on track to play in the season opener against the Colts, but he missed 3 weeks with what was described as an oblique injury. So this Tyreek Hill saga, let's just call it that at this point, like an injury different than drama, but it just feels like right now there's just a lot of hesitation as we all look at Tyreek to try and figure out what this year is going to look like for the Dolphins.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to turn this into the fantasy conversation because we have experts who are far smarter than I at that, but don't draft Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill has entered the it's always something aspect of his career. I believe that anyway. Look, he could put up 1,500 yards again. I don't know, but I'm not betting on that. I think it's just Tyreek. It's just one of those. There's always going to be something going on with Tyreek Hill from here on out. I thought the Dolphins missed their chance to get off the exit ramp. The moment Tyreek said after that game, "Hey, I want out of here. It's been fun, but I'm done." I think Dolphins should have been like, "Yeah, okay, well, yeah, we've got to trade you, Tyreek. We got to trade you. What can we do?" But they held on to him for a year, and I just don't see this working out well. There's been no good vibes with Tyreek Hill for basically since the end of the 2023 season. And I don't know if a big way too over dramatic here, but I just don't think this, I don't see Tyreek Hill having a great year with the Dolphins. I don't see him being a Dolphin in 2026. I don't see the Dolphins being a very good team, period, this year. I just think it's kind of done. And this injury it's probably out of his control. Like guys get injured and they come back for the opener, no big deal, but it's always something. I just think that's where it's going to be all season. It's always going to be something with Tyreek. We haven't heard the end of this.
It's always going to be something with the Dolphins. Like if we're being fair here, the shine has just absolutely dulled on Mike McDaniel, hasn't it? Like it was funny and it was quirky and it was weird and it was awesome in the beginning because what we saw were incredibly creative offensive game plans and motion pre-snap and all of these different things that just looked different. And you saw it, and there was just a level of joy in the way the guys were playing, and you were getting the best out of everybody. And it just felt like something was right. And over the course of the last 18 months, it just feels like something is wrong, and it's always wrong. And it's like a bad relationship at this point where you don't really know when you should break up, but you know the breakup is coming inevitably. That's where I feel like we are at this point with the Dolphins and McDaniel, just because there's so much smoke from reports of, players showing up late or not showing up at all. And some of the comments he's made about, I can only do so much to motivate guys, all of these things. It's not quirky or funny anymore. And this just happens. This happens in the NFL. Like when somebody's a little different, it's embraced as long as the results are great. But the minute the results aren't great, we start asking questions. And I don't know right now if Tyreek Hill is going to ever be who Tyreek Hill was before, even though he's only 31. And in modern NFL wide receiver, Frank, 31 is not, that's not the cemetery where we take the old folks out to die. Like 31 is still a reasonable age for productivity. It just doesn't feel like it is for Tyreek, which then is going to lead to questions about Tua, which is then going to lead to questions about coach. And it feels like we are just careening towards the end of this entire chapter for the Dolphins, and they missed their window.
Yeah, and I agree with you. 31 isn't, a death sentence for an NFL wide receiver, but a 31-year-old who's relied on nothing basically but his speed the entire time, you lose a step. Like it's the guy who's just throwing 101 mile an hour heat inning after inning, and all of a sudden he's throwing 97. It's like it's still hard, but all of a sudden guys can hit you now. I think Tyreek, he just didn't look like the same guy last year. Maybe it was a wrist. He's talked about that. Maybe that's possible. He just didn't look as explosive. And that happens when you turn 30. Like, trust me, turn 40, it gets even worse, Tyreek. Let me warn you about that. But yes, and I just think, look, maybe you have a different answer than me, but if you were to ask me which team is going to finish with a top 5 or 6 draft pick next year, who you're going to look back and say, yeah, I guess we could see that coming, but it's still a little bit of a surprise. I think it's the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins could really bottom out here. I think you look at how their team is constructed, and you basically traded Jonnu Smith the second he wanted any more money, and you traded away Jalen Ramsey, who's a really good player. Now you got Minka Fitzpatrick back. He's really, really good. But you look at, boy, Achane's already dealing with injuries. Zach Seiler's already dealing with some injuries. If Tyreek isn't the same dude, that puts the entire offense on Jalen Waddle. And I don't know that I really want that for Tua. So, and Tua himself has questions after last year where he kind of became just a check down guy. So I just, if this goes bad for the Dolphins, I could see it going really, really, really bad to where you're just like, this is one of the 5 worst teams in the NFL.
I mean, Flores in his last 2 seasons went 10-6 and 9-8, and then he was gone. McDaniel at this point has gone 9-8, 11-6, and then last year's 8-9. And that 8-9 just never felt right. To your point,
you know what?
If this truly goes off the rails,
mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to point out before we move on to anybody else. For me, you know what a warning sign was? And I've talked about this on the show, but it's been a while. They ran off Vic Fangio. The players were like, oh, this guy's too hard on us. We need to get rid of him. And all of a sudden you're like, Vic Fangio's gone for the Dolphins? I guess. Like, I thought Vic was a good coach, but maybe he's not a good coach anymore. Then he goes to the Eagles, and we were talking with dudes Super Bowl week who were like, I love playing for Vic Fangio. He gets the best out of me, and he is an unbelievable defensive mind. And the Eagles win a Super Bowl with Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. And I'm just sitting there thinking the whole Super Bowl week, what the Dolphins could use a guy like this. Like, you ran off Vic Fangio? That's bad.
I talked to Cooper DeJean. I talked to Cooper DeJean a couple of days ago. You can check that out on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page, and we had it on Yahoo Sports Daily, which everybody should listen to from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. But Cooper, when I talked to him, I asked him about Vic, and he said he's really tough, which I love. I mean, that was his one of the first things he said is like, he's tough, but he's a clear communicator, which I love. And everybody has to understand exactly what they're doing. And he talked about his pick 6 in the Super Bowl that's become such a famous play, and why that play was only possible because 2 other people in the defense were doing the right thing at the right time in the right ways, which allowed him to get that interception. And, you know, there's a level of coaching and communication and just working your tail off that, man, you got to be wired for. And there is a question of, when you look at a team, fair or not, that feels now like it's at some level sort of undisciplined. Now you got to ask yourself, all right, how much of this is the culture that's being created? Like, there is just a looseness to the way Mike McDaniel does everything. And I would argue that there feels like most times there's a looseness to the way the Dolphins are on the field, which works when you're winning. Again, we all love it. We all love players, coaches, and just this loose, fun energy when you're winning a bunch of football games. When you're not, all right, then you're going to start to say, okay, has it gone too far? And I think that's a fair question. Like, if Tua stinks this year and they end up with a top 5 draft pick, everybody's getting fired in that building, literally everybody, and they're starting a massive rebuild, right?
Yep, starting over a quarterback and if they're as bad as I think they could be, and who knows, like, look, they were 8-9 last year dealing with Tua missing games. Like, they were like some garbage team last year. They were pretty good, and they got derailed by a quarterback injury. That does happen. But I just think the vibes there are so bad, and I don't think the roster is as good anymore, and they keep losing free agents every year. So you're right. There's no chance Mike McDaniel's back if they have some kind of I think if they lose double-digit games, I don't think he'd come back. I don't think Chris Greer, their GM, would be back either, just because, to use your term, what's the proof of concept that you guys are turning this thing around? It's going the other way. Like 2 years ago, we felt pretty good, but even that 11-win season, let's not forget what the narrative was that year. They beat up on bad teams. They beat one team with a winning record all year, and it was the Cowboys at home on a last-second field goal. They caught a schedule break like you can't believe it. Beat 10 losing teams, and they won 11 and got housed in the playoffs by the Chiefs. So I don't know. There's just nothing right now that gets me excited about the Dolphins. We could get to the season, and Waddle, who I really, really like. Waddle could be awesome, and Hill could be his 2023 self. And Tua, who I've defended before for being a little underrated because people don't want to give him his credit. He could rebound, and Achane could be like, all these things could happen, but it's a lot of what ifs for one team. I'll tell you that.